Hey ninth grade! Welcome back to week 3 of our Google Classroom. Thank you for being engaged and submitting your work for our assignment last week. We hope that the feedback you received from us was helpful and you can now properly sequence events in a text. If you are still confused about anything, please reach out with your questions. Last week, we talked about how properly sequencing events in a text and how flashback can be instrumental in giving the reader critical information about the past that influences the character. In today's video, we are going to work on a writing mechanics skill, writing 5-paragraph essays. The purpose of today's video is to provide an overview of the 5-paragraph essay with a focus on background information, topic sentences, transitions, and closing sentences. Writing a 5-paragraph essay is an essential skill for writing and communicating effectively, and it is an important skill for fulfilling several competencies and moving on to the 10th grade. You will be needing a notebook and pen for today's class, so pause this video and come back when your writing materials are ready. Let's get started. How is a 5-paragraph essay structured? You should have all learned this in your 8th and 9th grade years. So for the do now, in a few sentences, please describe how a 5-paragraph essay should be structured and fill in your answers on the Google Classroom. Pause the video now. The structure of a 5-paragraph essay includes an introductory paragraph, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion paragraph. We are now going to go through each of these parts of a 5-paragraph essay individually. Let's start with the introductory paragraph. This is the first paragraph that is going to come in any 5-paragraph essay. The purpose of your introductory paragraph is to introduce the topics that are going to be addressed in your paper. You do this in 3 distinct sections. First, you have your hook. This is an attention-grabbing sentence that introduces the topic of your essay in an interesting way. This is all about bringing the reader in and making them invested in reading your 5-paragraph essay. Next, you have background information. This is important information that prepares your reader for what they are about to read in the essay. Let's say you are writing an essay on the giver. You need to explain some of the elements of the giver community if the reader is going to understand your essay. Lastly, and the most important part, is your thesis statement. If you don't have a good thesis statement, you're not going to have a good essay. Your thesis statement has 2 parts. Firstly, it introduces the main idea that you are going to explain in your paper. Essentially, it explains what you are arguing. And then secondly, it serves as a roadmap. It provides some information about the organization of your paper in your subtopics. After your introductory paragraph, you get into the body of the essay. Body paragraphs are the majority of your essay, and this is where you defend the argument that you put in your thesis statement. An important note: your body paragraphs must be in the same order as your subtopics in the thesis statement. Got that? Alright, so you might remember that I taught you all body paragraphs using the expression MEAT. That stood for main idea, evidence, analysis, and transition. Let's go through each of those. Let's start with our main idea, or what we sometimes just talk about as the topic sentence. This is a creative and well-written sentence that conveys the main idea of that paragraph. Essentially, you take the subtopic that you put in your thesis statement and you paraphrase that in a new and interesting way. Next, we get our evidence. Important, please put your evidence towards the beginning of the paragraph. You guys forget to do this sometimes and it drives me nuts. So your evidence are specific and relevant quotes, anecdotes, and examples. And then you use analysis to explain why those quotes, anecdotes, and examples support the argument written in your topic sentence. And then lastly, we have the transition sentence. This is what ties everything together. It wraps up the paragraph, but we need to remember that it serves 2 purposes. So the first one is that it is signaling the end of the paragraph that you have just written. But that's not its only job. It's also connecting you to the idea in the next paragraph, creating a linkage between your paragraphs that holds your essay together. The last paragraph in your 5-paragraph essay is your conclusion paragraph. Your conclusion paragraph has two main functions. Firstly, it's restating the thesis statement. You're briefly summarizing the ideas described in your paper, paraphrasing the thesis statement. It's important to remember you cannot simply rewrite your thesis statement. You have to paraphrase yourself and write your main idea in a new, interesting way. Then, lastly, you do your call to action. This is where you provide a takeaway or an idea or thought that you want to communicate with your readers. You want to leave them asking more questions, wanting to do more research, having thoughts or insights of your own. That's when you'll know you've written a good 5-paragraph essay. All right, that was a lot of information. So let's do a mini review of a few of the ideas that we covered in this lesson. Look at the following questions. What is the first sentence of a paragraph in a paper? What does a transitional sentence do? What is a thesis? And what is the overall structure of a 5-paragraph essay? Pause the video and answer each of these questions in your notebook. If you said that the first sentence of a paragraph is a hook, you're correct. Remember, hooks grab a reader's attention and introduce the main idea of the paper. Transitional sentences have two purposes. They signal the end of a paragraph, and they also introduce the idea that's coming in the next paragraph. A thesis has the main idea of your paper and also includes subtopics that give the reader a map to what is going to be covered in your paper. And the overall structure of a 5-paragraph essay is introduction, body paragraph, body paragraph, body paragraph, conclusion paragraph. All right, great job, guys. Now, let's practice identifying hooks. Again, hooks are attention-grabbing sentences that introduce topics that you're going to write about. Take a look at the following sentences and think about which sentence would be a good hook and which sentence would not be a good hook. Write these sentences in your notebook and then explain why each sentence is a good or a not good hook. The sentences are, I'm going to talk about oceans. Michelle Obama once said, you can't make decisions based on fear and what might happen. And lastly, timing is everything. Pause the video now. Now that you've individually gone through each sentence and reflected on what made each a good or a bad hook, let's go through this together. The first sentence, I am going to talk about oceans, introduced an idea. We can assume that the paper will include information about oceans next, but it is not very engaging. It doesn't draw the reader in. Therefore, this is a weak hook. What about the second sentence? Is this a strong or a weak hook? Michelle Obama once said, you can't make decisions based on fear and what might happen. This right here is an attention-grabbing sentence. This is a good hook. Providing a quote is one strategy for writing hooks. We'll look at a few more strategies in a minute. The third sentence, timing is everything, also works. It is an engaging sentence. It makes the reader wonder what is going to happen next and makes them want to read your essay to find out more information. Let's go back to that first sentence. I am going to talk about oceans, the one that we identified as a weak hook. How can we fix it? We talked about one strategy for writing strong hooks, providing a quote. Other hook writing strategies include writing a description and providing statistics. Let's look at 3 ways you could have improved that weak hook and identify which strategy was used for each sentence. A first way we could have fixed that hook is with this sentence. Expansive bodies of water, oceans, make up a majority of the Earth's surface. What strategy is this an example of? This is an example of providing a description. Now in the second one, as one looks at a globe, you might be surprised to see that over 70% of the world is made up of oceans. What strategy do we use here? Anyone? This is an example of providing a statistic, 70%. And then lastly, we have, according to Jacques Cousteau, a well-known marine conservationist, the sea, once it casts its spell, holds one in its net of wonder forever. You should recognize this strategy. This is an example of providing a quote. Great job practicing our hooks. Now, let's practice identifying the structure of paragraphs in your essay. Pause the video and read the following passage. As you're reading, identify the parts of an introduction and body paragraph. Pause the video now. All right, let's go through this. So, we know that this first paragraph is our introduction paragraph, and that it needs to have 3 parts. Our first sentence: each year, thousands of people throughout the United States choose to spend their vacations camping in the great outdoors, is our hook. This next part, highlighted in black, is our background information. It provides information about camping that the reader needs to know in order to understand the essay. Our last part, highlighted in green, is our thesis statement. Our main idea: tent camping can be an extremely frustrating experience, and our subtopics are bad weather, wildlife encounters, and equipment failures. Now, let's turn to our next paragraph, our first body paragraph. You'll notice our first subtopic was bad weather, and this first body paragraph is about bad weather. We can tell this by looking at our topic sentence, highlighted in blue. Nothing can dampen the excited anticipation of camping more than a dark, rainy day. This next part, highlighted in pink, includes our evidence and analysis. They give examples and they analyze those examples. And then lastly, highlighted again in green, is our transition sentence. It wraps up the idea of bad weather and camping, and it also makes a reference to wildlife, which, as we know from our thesis statement, it will be our second body paragraph. All right, good job with this video lesson. We hope you feel more comfortable with the structure of 5-paragraph essays. Understanding the structures of essays will make you a stronger writer, better able to communicate your ideas, and a stronger reader, better able to understand what others are communicating. For this week's homework, log on to the Google Classroom, read the article provided, and answer the questions with complete sentences. Your homework should be completed by May 21st. We will give you feedback on all of your submissions, which will help you as you continue to study and practice your competencies. One small note: I am currently finishing up the final edits on Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, and we'll have a PDF of it posted on the Google Classroom soon. See you next week. Get out of here.